Learn the latest news surrounding this star player as he reveals that he will reject interest from Manchester United as he can only sign for one club in the Premier League. Moving on, we have some big updates surrounding Dumfries as it seems like he is next on the list as we are set to miss out on Jules Kounde. I'll give my thoughts and opinions, I'll break these stories down, you guys know what you're here for. So if you like today's video, if you're loving the content, you guys smash the like button. Let's try and get 3k likes for today's video. But before we get into anything, I want to get one big plug out of the way first. Today's video is brought to you by friends of the channel in OneFootball. OneFootball is my favourite go-to footballing app that I use. So many features. As you guys can see on screen right now, not only are you able to get access to club specific news, you guys, you know that I've been showing this recently, it's very handy, see reports surrounding Breuer, Werner, etc, etc, but outside of club specific news, there's even more uses of OneFootball. If we go to the match tab right here, you can actually even watch games through the app, and if you guys are curious to watch some of the Champions League qualifying matches currently, as you can see, games versus AEK and Midtjylland from Denmark. So it's quite cool, of course, that OneFootball continues to add to the app, add to the user experience, and it keeps on growing and growing and growing every single time. So honestly, you guys, try OneFootball app for yourself. There are so many other features to break down and dissect. It's a great way to explore for yourself, and I'm telling you, it is worthwhile downloading. So you'll find a link below in the description. Download OneFootball. So let's start with things and let's break down the latest news surrounding FRENKIE de Jong. Now I'm going to use Sport, the Spanish publication, when it comes to just discussing this overall story. And essentially, FRENKIE de Jong has told Manchester United he is not interested. He doesn't want to sign for them. In a very similar situation to Cristiano Ronaldo, he is put off by the fact that Man United aren't in the Champions League. FRENKIE de Jong is 25 years old. He's been playing for Barcelona. He's been playing in the Champions League season after season. Manchester United does not meet his sporting ambitions. He doesn't have the confidence that they have the ability. Most importantly, he is very disillusioned by the current structures and management at the club. So that's terrible news for Manchester United fans. Of course, United have had a bid accepted now for a while. However, FRENKIE de Jong and his team have been stalling the inevitable move because they don't want to go there and they want their money back from Barcelona. So this is where we come into the equation, because de Jong now, I feel, is starting to accept the fact that if he is forced out, he wants to go to a Champions League club. And we are a lot more attractive compared to Manchester United based on the projects, based on the ownership, and most importantly, based on the fact that we actually challenge for silverware and compete in the biggest tournaments in world football. So we have those advantages on our sides. But the report does state that if we were to make a move for FRENKIE de Jong, we won't be offering the same amount of money as Manchester United did to try and sign him. And for me, that makes a lot of sense. And for principal reasons, we can't be overpaying or, matching the same fees that Manchester United have done. Now, currently, we know that Kounde is probably set now to be signing for Barcelona. They've done something quite similar now that they've done with other targets we want, by telling the players to reject us outright, of course, to force the selling clubs to kind of bend to the wills of Barcelona. Now, we've said that Kounde, of course, is kind of too small. We've had reservations surrounding him. It's made no sense to me considering the fact that we've got Reece James, who's played as a right centre-back, and Azpilicueta, who's played there many a time, and Kounde is actually very good in the air. So for me, I'm trying not to look weak in the market. So essentially, the reason why I'm bringing this story up, you guys, is that we're currently blocking the moves of Marcos Alonso and Azpilicueta to Barcelona. So for me, if we were to make a move for FRENKIE de Jong, it would have to involve or include either one of Alonso or Aspi in terms to bring the overall cost and prices down. For me, I'd actually offer both players if it was possible, based on the fact that they're not the same game-changing players that they used to be. I feel like they don't necessarily improve their teammates around them, and I kind of feel like we have to make up for some of their deficiencies in their game, and unfortunately a lot of that is due to a lack of pace and physicality at times. Still, I'd be curious to know how negotiations could possibly go, knowing the fact that us and Barca are in a very tense situation right now. We aren't very happy with their practices and what they've been doing to us during the window naturally. But the one thing going for us, if we were to sign FRENKIE de Jong, is that Barcelona do have to sell. His sell is key for them. Currently, de Jong is refusing to take any pay cuts. Barcelona won't give back the deferred payments owed to de Jong, set at around 17 million euros. Barca have told the player that if you want to remain, you must accept reduced wages, but it's not necessarily fair considering that he's deferred payments now for a very long time and is owed a lot of money. De Jong's a bit upset by the fact that Barcelona have money to sign new players instead of paying him the money that he's owed. So it does seem like he'll come to a crossroads eventually, and I guess it falls down to the next part of the video, and that's giving opinions as to whether Frenkie de Jong would be a wise signing to make in this window. Now, de Jong is a fantastic technician of the ball. Let's not debate things. He's got incredible technique. His own personality he brings on the fields, very creative, very good in tight areas. But for me, am I seeing things wrong here in feeling like he would be like an incredible luxury signing to make? Now, my first thought is, if we were to sign him, we have to sell someone in midfield first. Otherwise, we're going to be overstacked in midfield. And normally when you have too many options for limited positions, in the long run, that doesn't work out well for your squads. Another thing that I'm not too sure about is the fact that we already have a Frenkie de Jong signing in Kovacic, as well as the fact that Loftus-Cheek has been used there in positions as well, even though that's not necessarily his best one. Do you need to have two Kovacic's in your team? If we're maintaining a back three system, I can't see a pivot of Kova and Frenkie de Jong necessarily being as successful together because both don't have those defensive instincts that you need to balance out a midfield like that. Normally when you sign players like Frenkie de Jong, it's implying that you're upgrading a position in your team. So are we going to be upgrading on Kovacic or Jorginho or Kante or Ruben? I'm not too sure. And just looking at that market, how many clubs are really making offers for our players? It's not happening. But I guess my final concern is, what exactly would the game plan be if we were to sign Frenkie de Jong? You know, I look at that midfield balance. We have a lot of box-to-box mids that aren't playing as box-to-box mids. We have a lot of ball progressive players in our team that at times don't always play together. De Jong was originally seen as like a Busquets successor based on his incredible ability to progress and play from deep. However, because he doesn't have those defensive instincts that you need to balance those roles out, he has been used in a lot more advanced positions in the field. I feel like you'd have to take advantage of that type of midfield talent, but at the same time, I feel like a player like him would also need a DM behind him, of course, to just give him that extra sense of protection that he would need, of course, to express himself in the field. So unless we are planning on selling some, big names for the window closes, currently this feels like a massive luxury signing that could cause potential tactical issues for us as the season does go on. But they're only my thoughts and opinions, you guys. If you have a different perspective, please share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section so we can all read them. So right now, we move on to the final big story that broke today, and it's time to talk Denzel Dumfries. Now, this report came from the Evening Standard from reporter Nizar Kinsella, and it seems like we are turning our attentions back to a player that we have already monitored in this window. Now, of course, when we were negotiating with Inter Milan for Lukaku to return there back on loan, we spoke about Skriniar and we spoke about Denzel Dumfries. Currently, it does seem like we are re-exploring the possibilities of signing Denzel Dumfries to the team, knowing the fact now that it seems like we are set to miss out on Jules Kounde. The report states that we are still contemplating the move, and for me, I'd imagine that we're collecting more data, getting more reports surrounding the player before coming in with a serious and concrete offer. The report states that we have made a request for information to assess the defender, of course, to find out the situation, see where his head's at, and see if there's a willingness on the player's part to make a move to us. Now, I'm a little bit worried by that, considering that the Premier League season is starting in less than 2 weeks' time. It's clear that our preparation just hasn't been as prepared as we hoped. And of course, naturally, Inter Milan don't really want to have to sell because it means that they'd have to go back into the market to find options. And that can be quite bothersome, that can be quite tiresome at times. However, they still have to balance the books when it comes to financial reasons. So if a very good offer came for Dumfries, and the offer they want to sell the player is around 40 million euros, then they're willing to do business. But naturally, of course, we don't want to pay 40 mil euros. You have to kind of see it like this. Not only are you paying for the transfer fee, you're paying for the wages, of course, the little agent fees and details like that on top too. So when you add those combined things up for the year, Dumfries would cost you like, I don't know, 40 million pounds in total once that fee is agreed. So it's obvious that we shouldn't spend that type of money on essentially signing a squad option for the team. But that is the latest news on Dumfries. And I want to end this video by giving my thoughts and opinions behind this move and how I feel about targets like Dumfries to begin with. Now, I can't help but feel like a move for Dumfries just screams opportunism. we remain unable to sign our key main targets during windows, and it forces us to have to pick the very best of the rest that is available in the market. And for me, that isn't necessarily the best way to grow and improve, of course, and close that gap on your Liverpools and your Man Cities. For me, currently, it feels like we're a lot closer now to teams like United, Arsenal, and Spurs, who have all leveled up now, who have all bought smart players as well too, and are now playing a lot more competitively and much better football. For me, you sign Dumfries when you're unsatisfied by the rest of the centre-back options available in the market, or you realise that you just can't sign these guys to begin with. For me, if you sign Dumfries, it's simple. It implies that Reece James will play the biggest games as a right centre-back in the team. We've seen them do that against Madrid, in cup finals, etc, etc. Now, in a recent stream, I mentioned the fact that maybe you might have to have a conversation with Reece James if you're unable to sign centre-backs in this window, and just tell him, listen, maybe James, you might have to sacrifice for the team for one more year, just because we aren't able to get the options we need in the team for next season. I say that because I'd imagine that ideally a player like Reece James would not be happy to be playing as a right centre-back in big games when we know how incredible he is, when we know how incredible Reece James is in the opponent's half. He's one of our best creative players in the team, one of our best offensive players, and for me to miss out on that offensive output in a team like ours where we kind of struggle for creativity in the final third, I think you're taking a huge loss. And I think that a move for Dumfries might not be the best move to make in the long term. Because the reality is, Dumfries is not as good as Reece James in the final thirds. It's that simple. And I mentioned the long-term viability of a signing like Dumfries because reports in the standards also alluded to the fact that Tuchel may be tempted to use a 4-2-3-1 system as the season goes on. And interestingly enough, on the ball, when we lost in the first half against Arsenal, we kind of became like a 4-2-3-1 team in a sense, so there could be something more concrete behind those claims. And my thing is, if that is the reality, then of course, Reece James eventually will always be that number one right back in the team. And in the end, you've spent over 30 plus mil on a squad player that won't be playing as much. And the thing is, if he isn't successful, you then struggle to sell the player because number one, he's never ever reclaimed back that same transfer fee, because when you come to big clubs like us and don't make it, your transfer valuation drops dramatically. So could we be possibly recreating a situation we tend to find ourselves in every single window, overpaying for mid players who don't bring long-term benefits to the team, and then we struggle to move them on, which then affects other business we can do and affects details like pre-season, because the manager has too many players he has to look after and can't work with a smaller group that he'll rely upon once the season actually starts. Every decision has consequences. For me, sometimes you need to strike that balance between the now and the long term. And I'm not sure if Dumfries necessarily is either for our hopes for next season. I do understand that we need solutions in this window, but at the same time, I feel like our manager also has to coach and develop our players to get better and improve. I mean, we all have hopes that a lot of these guys, once they're 25, 26, will be some of the leading players in their positions. And I just think sometimes you can miss out on the full capabilities and potential of a player if they're constantly sacrificing their best traits in their game to fulfill the team demands for the system. I feel like as a Chelsea fan, I've seen this thing time and time again. And it's just like, how often do we actually level up and take players to the next level? Not all the time. Now, to end my point, I'm going to end it on possibly an annoying point for some of you guys. And it's going to go back to, my complaints of us allowing guys like Livramento and Mark Guy to leave. I see it like this. We struggle to get our number one, number two, and number three options here. But the one advantage we do have is that we're producing an academy right now that is giving us Premier League level caliber players under the age of 21. How many academies are producing consistent Prem class like this? No one. And for me, the fact that we've sold these guys on, cashed in very early, not even extracting the full valuation from them, to then reinvest into more experienced options that end up working against the team and putting us in the same cycle of having to then find moves away from them and then struggling to find replacements. For me, it's like we had those set foundations at the club already. When you're at a club where you struggle to get your first, second and third choice options, use what you have and then bide your time for when you have full confidence that you can upgrade certain positions instead of reinvesting the money, and a lot of that money on signing mediocre talent that isn't that much better than what we already produced at this club. I think it's that simple. Because my thing is this, just to end my point. Next season, we're going to be fine for a top 4 spot. Once that season ends, most players' contracts expire in 2023, which tells me and should tell all of us again that expect there to be another busy summer in the 23-24 season. So essentially, it could take you another 2 to 3 years just to be able to mount a serious title challenge. And that's only if everything goes according to plan in those 3 years. And for me, if you had kept your Livramontos and Mark Gaze, imagine where they'd be in 3 years' time. Imagine where we could be in that same period. We had options of quality in this team already, which would have meant that we don't have to dip in the market now to assess options like Denzel Dumfries for around 40 mil euros. It's absolutely crazy to me. And for me, this is where I want to see Thomas Tuchel as our manager who has executive decisions to make, making the right long-term decisions that benefits not only us, but also his plans as well too, because I feel like he's been too willing to allow talent to leave for nothing that could be benefiting us and allowing us to focus on other areas now. So they're my thoughts and opinions surrounding Denzel Dumfries. If I'm wrong, please, you guys always know I'm down to read other people's opinions. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. So I'm in the FC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.